back into session. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we start out today's program review with special education program review with Angie. Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for having me, and students. Thank you for being here. My name is Angie Lauterbach. I'm the special education supervisor for Delano. I'm actually employed by Meeker and Wright Special Education Cooperative. Delano is one of the member districts. We support things like itinerant services that help with cost sharing for the district, occupational therapy, physical therapy, also SPED leadership, and additional programming when students need it in the district. I thought I'd share just a couple highlights and some upcoming things for special education. We've had a couple of really cool adaptive sports that have happened over this school year. There was an adaptive floor hockey event that was in partnership with Meeker and Wright Special Ed Cooperative. It was hosted at Howard Lake. Delano brought a good-sized team. We had 10 players, and we were actually able to have some of our students from our STEP program, who are in our 18 to 22, join with our school-age students. So that was really cool. And it was great because our girls' hockey team also came and volunteered. And so it was a very fun experience to watch. They tied for second. It was a three-way tie for second, but they tied for second, and they were very excited. There's also going to be an event called Unite 2025. It's May 1st in Rockford, and so this first event was 7th through age 22. This will be K through 8th grade. And it'll give them an opportunity to try out some different sports and different activities, and the hope is that maybe we can get some Minnesota State High School League additional sports for some of our special ed students. So Vinnie Pokernowski, one of our adaptive phy ed teachers, has been partnering with athletic directors like Megan Chatterton here and kind of bringing in some of those opportunities. Our STEP program is for our 18 to 22-year-old students, and their graduation's on May 23rd. And I just found out that Superintendent Shane is doing the graduation speech, so it should be good. We also have a couple students that said that Mr. Voigt had to attend, so he's getting to attend this year too because they wanted him to be there, so that's always fun. And then a couple of things that are coming up in special education. I'm not sure how much you are all familiar with criteria for special education, but to qualify for a learning disability, we're under what's called a discrepancy model. So really simplistically speaking, your IQ is here, and your math or reading ability has to be significantly discrepant. There's lots of problems with that model. It's kind of a random number, and unfortunately we can miss students that need services. And so Minnesota is moving to a new model, and it's going to be in the next 5 years. It seems like a long time, but it's a really big shift for a lot of districts. The positive for Delano is the qualification is through an MTSS model, which is a framework we've been working on for quite a few years. So the special education team has been working closely with general education, administrators, and interventionists so that we're ready to move to that framework when we need to do so. And then it's also been nice to see that our referrals for specific learning disability and other health disability have reduced. And the reason I think that's a good thing is because the MTSS process has facilitated more effective academic intervention. So what it means is we're probably meeting our kids, providing that intervention, and getting them the support they need before they might need to otherwise go into special education services. We've been spending a lot of time this year talking about, we have all these great academic interventions, how can we add in some more emotional and behavioral interventions so we can hopefully also see our students with emotional behavioral disorders maybe get support prior to needing special education services. So those are just a couple of highlights, but I'd welcome any questions if there's anything I can answer for the board.
Well, the board might be thinking about that. I've said this from almost annually, and I say this all the time. The cooperative is the most efficient way districts our size and the 6 other districts that are members of the cooperative to provide required services. And the leadership at Masico, Angie has been our supervisor in this district for a number of years now and has provided excellent leadership in navigating through sometimes very complex. I've said over the last probably 10 years now, special ed students that receive services on an IEP due to their disabilities, the number of students served hasn't necessarily changed, maybe 1% or 2% here and there. But I gotta tell you, the complexities of the services that we provide has changed exponentially. We're working with kids that have all various different levels of disabilities, and through the great partnership with the Masico, we are able to really do a good job in providing that. The other thing that I just would like to add is that Masico is now 50 years old. And one of my colleagues looked at me and says, well, what was it like, man? On year one, what was it like putting together the charter for Masico? I came close to slapping him. Anyways, and that's good to celebrate, because it's been, when IDEA came along in the mid-'70s and all of the requirements through the federal government and through the state government, districts our size just couldn't do it on their own. We can't have our own special ed director. It's just fiscally doesn't work, and the funding doesn't even come close to what we need to do. So a group of very smart individuals got together and formed this cooperative 50 years ago to provide required services, but we did it together. And it's the same concept that we have with the Right Tech Center. We can't provide all those services, it's just not cost effective, but we can do it together in partnership, and that's exactly why we do this. So very appreciative of Angie's leadership. She's done a fantastic job in navigating through our processes in the district. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Has Masico been in a similar building this whole time too? Like, do they
Oh,
have
no,
rent?
they've moved multiple times.
yeah, Mary would know better than I do. I've gone through two major generations. We used to be, since I've been here, we've always, the cooperative has been housed out of the Howard Lake Waverly Winstead School District since I've been here. Programs that offer have moved a little bit, but we used to be in the old middle school building of the Howard Lake Waverly. It no longer exists, and so when we did a building project with Howard Lake Waverly Winstead, and we're part of a 20-year lease of the new building that is part of the old middle school of Howard Lake Waverly Winstead. I don't know where it was before that.
They've always been in Howard Lake itself, but they used to be in a little tiny, like a little hole-in-the-wall little office area in one of the downtown buildings, so, yeah, but,
This is where my question was going with the
Yeah.
LTFM at Right Tech.
Oh.
I'm surprised that Masico doesn't have equal issues.
well, they can't because they've got the capital bond for, they had to purchase the space from Howard Lake, so they're actually, because they're in Howard Lake, they just lease the space from Howard Lake, so Howard Lake has all the LTFM stuff.
And
So,
could you share, like, because I've had this conversation a couple times in the last 2 weeks, kind of the variety of services Masico offers, because parents don't really know
Yeah.
what you do. And I
yeah.
say, well, we use Masico for that. They're like, who, what?
Yep, yeah, absolutely can. So for our littlest learners, students that are birth up to 3 years of age, we actually provide in-home services. So we have special education teachers, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, deaf and hard of hearing teachers, vision teachers, all that go directly into homes. And a big part of their services are collaborating with the family, helping the parents, whatever the parents' goals are for their child, they're really partnering with them. And they're their first experience of what it's like in special education. Once they hit age 3, they transition into our school age services. So I support birth to 22 in this position, but we often get a little bit more involved when they reach age 3, and that's when they start receiving preschool services. We have, like I mentioned, the itinerant services. We also have federal setting 4 programs, which are programs for students who maybe can't have their needs met in the general ed K-12 environment. So we have some programs for students primarily with autism spectrum disorders or other communication disorders, students with emotional behavioral disorders. We have some programs in Buffalo and some in Howard Lake. We have our 18 to 22 transition program, so getting them ready for adulthood, jobs, independent living, being productive, and hopefully happy members of society. We have some care and treatment programs, so if there's some students that maybe need to go to a care and treatment program, we might provide the education for that. We also have Village Ranch is a residential program where we provide the education. We don't do the residential service, and Sholand is a similar program, but for girls in Annandale, and Village Ranch is in Cokato. We also have traumatic brain injury consultants, assistive technology consultants, just pretty much all the little niche specialty areas, an audiologist. Very rarely is a district going to have a need for one audiologist when they're our size. So we share that across our 7-member districts. I'm trying to think, are there any other services?
Behavior.
Pardon?
analysts.
Oh, behavior analysts, thank you. Yes.
Big
We
one.
rely really heavily on our behavior analysts. They often help students who might be having some of the biggest concerns in school learn how to build their replacement skills so they can be safe and can have great peer relationships and progress academically. We also have a classroom systems consultant. This is the 2nd year of that position. They go into schools and help our teachers in district establish effective federal Setting 3 programs, which means those are our students that spend the majority of their day in the special education classroom. And our goal is to make those programs really effective so we can keep our students here when they're able to be successful here. And then hopefully they can then gain skills to then reintegrate back into the general ed classroom. But yes, we have a lot of different professionals, so thank you for asking that.
Would you be able to share, you had mentioned that the MTSS has reduced the referral rate. Do you know by how much, and is that here in Delano?
It's specifically in Delano. We filled out our ADSYS application, and I can't remember offhand the percentage of, I can look that up for you and get it to you though, because I think it really is a testament to, we don't want to over-refer students when they just need a little boost. And we have some kids where it's like they just get a little reading intervention, we monitor their scores, things are going great, we keep an eye on it, but they don't need to move into evaluation. And so I'll get those numbers for you. But I will say some of our emotional behavioral disorders referrals have seen a little bit of an uptick. And I think part of that's just mental health crisis and just some increasing needs we're seeing across the country. But we're really trying to focus on what are some tier 1 instructional strategies that classroom teachers can use to help social emotional learning for all students. And so that's kind of what we've been focusing on this year too. Obviously the academic stuff has been going for a long time really well and just working on upping the other programming. So
If Angie, you can just share the numbers when we do the research on it, and I'll share it out in my
Yeah.
Thursday email. The idea of MTSS too is that it another way to look at it, it increases once it gets to evaluation for an IEP, it increases the probability that they will qualify. So it's being more efficient with interventions done at the classroom level, at the building level, depending on what the situation is. MTSS that's that multiple tiers. And so it goes through those tiers. So if it does get to tier 3 or 4 now, which one we'll decide, the probability of them qualifying is going, I want it to be as high as possible once it gets to that point. Otherwise, it's not an efficient use and it's not a real good use, as what Angie said. It might just be a quick intervention this way and we monitor it 3 to 6 weeks later, we go back, we look how it went, and there's teams that meet on a bi-monthly basis. So that's the way the system is designed. So when it does get referred to a potential evaluation for a potential IEP, the rate for qualifying should be as high as we want, as we can get it.
And I would
Another
mention
way to
too,
look at
it's not like a wait and see approach. They're still getting interventions and supports. It's just starting that out in the least restrictive environment. We want them with their peers when they can be. We want them to get a boost of support when they need it. We don't want to pull them away from all the fun activities in gym and choir to do these huge interventions if they can be successful with a little bit less, or maybe even in their classroom with small groups. So.
Angie, have you noticed any change in the age or grade level of initial evals? Is that changed at all?
Anecdotally, I don't have numbers for you, but it seems like we've had increasing students coming in with ADHD diagnoses, younger and younger. And then I would say potentially some additional like emotional behavioral disorder referrals that we have seen
Earlier on?
Yep, and potentially, sometimes it's more explosive behavior quicker. Like before we would see like, oh, they're struggling a little bit and it would kind of build up, but we've had students where everything was fine and now it's not. And sometimes it's attributed to an underlying mental health concern, and we try to partner with families, and oftentimes those students, if they're able to get some services and support, whether it be whatever their family elects or maybe through one of our Masico programs or maybe through a special ed teacher and behavior analyst in district, they're able to make some gains. But I've noticed that.
right, thank you, Angie.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. This is where we have minutes from prior meetings, financial reports for the month. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Baker.
Baker first, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jess. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the resolution for the acceptance of gifts. The following organizations have generously donated. Whereas Charities Aid Foundation, $55 for Delano Elementary School. Charities Aid Foundation Cyber Grants, $1,000 for Delano Intermediate School. Ohio Pile Prints, $31.75 for Delano High School. DHS Pie, $241.03 for Biology and Pizza Party. Delano DTABC, $736 for Track and Field. Hurdle System and Training, DTABC, $4,895.79 for dance expenses. Girls Hockey Booster, $3,930 for Minnesota Hockey Day clothing. Drama Booster Club, $541.26 for fall play costume position. Initiative Foundation, $1,100 for the Dorn Family Scholarship. Loretto Lions, $3,500 for Community Ed Archery. Nick Matthews, pallets of wood for high school industrial tech, and the following Orange Crush Robotics. Delano Area Youth Hockey Association, $1,000. Delano Light the Night, $150. And Industrial Lubers, $750. All of these organizations have generously donated their funds to the Delano School District for the reasons mentioned above. This is going to be, do I have a motion to approve the resolution of acceptance of gifts?
So moved.
Second Gerke, first was Ryan. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Morilla?
Yes.
Board Member Gerke?
Aye.
Board Member Roser?
Aye.
Board Member Schost?
Aye.
Board Member Baker?
Aye.
Board Member Deppa? Aye. And Black is absent.
All right, motion carries. Next item is our personnel report. One thing we'll notice on here, we do have a few long-term, one particular long-term custodian who's been here for quite a while, who's resigning, Tim Essler. And then I know there's a few other coaches that we've got resigning who've been in their positions for a long time. So we thank them for their service to the district and wish them all well on their future. Do I have a motion to approve personnel matters?
Deppa?
Deppa first,
Baker?
Baker second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our administrative reports. First up, Superintendent Shane.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'll be brief. I do want to just update a little bit on where the legislature is at. Not much really. They've got a couple of breaks coming up here in the next few weeks, but the governor did propose some additional changes and revised his budget from his first proposal that was sent out a couple of months ago. A couple of things that may garner our attention is, one, he's looking at potentially reducing school library aid by about $7.5 million for fiscal year 27 and 26 and 27, $15 million again in fiscal year 28 and 29, so the next biennium. This is a position that we've had. We've restructured it based on that, but that's just, again, a potential funding revenue that we might not have that could affect a position that we're just going to have to navigate through. So we'll see how that pans out. And again, this is his budget proposal. The House has to come up with their parameters for spending, whether it's in education and for the entire state budget, and so does the Senate as well. Also just looking at he's looking at reducing community education equalization aid by about $15 million while permitting districts to levy for those costs. We just got, the last couple of fiscal years, we just got this aid. We qualified just to get this aid, this equalization aid, through community education. So we're just gonna have to navigate and see how it goes. Again, this is
16,000 for the Delano.
16,000 for Delano? Okay. The third thing that I just wanted to potentially broach, that it could have some form of impact with us, is the telecommunications equity aid. It's not a large dollar amount. It's about $375,000 for the state for the fiscal year 26, I believe. And these are just little things here and there that we're just gonna have to keep an eye on. It's kind of like what I referenced to with the federal government. We're just gonna keep an eye on it, stay nimble. With our budget planning, we don't know. Again, this is like, we're probably at halfway point. So we're at halftime almost. We've got the Easter break here, at the Eid break next week, so they won't be doing much work. But they do have some important deadlines that I'll share with you in just a minute. But as far as the both of the houses, the Senate Education Finance Committee really hasn't done much discussion. They obviously are going to set some parameters. The Senate Education Policy Committee has nothing much that really rocks our world. But the House has set a date, or actually a committee. They heard several bills, including HF 1124. Imagine how I can make this interesting when I changed my octave here. It would allow school districts to start before Labor Day in 2026 and 27.
Oh, yeah.
That does make a big difference for Delano, because in it would be the 26-27 school year. Labor Day is the 7th of September. We lose an entire week for the academic year. I think you all know what my opinion is on starting after Labor Day in the state of Minnesota. It's the absolute ridiculousness. But a couple $2 billion of revenue in the district with regards to the state fair and all sorts of things that happen. Education takes a second seat, and when we get to start, I hope one day that we, as districts, get to decide when we would start our school year and not governed by the state law. But so they're looking at it, and actually they're looking at it this time proactively. If you recall, a couple of years back, 2, 3, 4 years, school years back, they made the decision in May for the next school year. Well, as you well know, support, you've already approved a calendar, made no sense whatsoever. Actually, some districts went back and changed it. We decided not to, so we had already mapped it out and planned it out. So, important dates to remember in the future. Policy bill deadline is April 4th. That means no more introduction of bills, but it doesn't mean that something within the bill could still come about. That everything usually is on the table until their statutory end of their session. So, but they have set some deadlines. The funding bill, the budget bill deadline is the 11th of April, so in a couple of weeks we'll see some things getting a little bit more traction and moving forward. Like I said, there's a couple of breaks built into that too, and their constitutional deadline to adjourn is on May 19th. Also, another very important date to remember is June 30 is the end of the fiscal year for the state. If they do not have, which is required by law, to have an approved budget, you will see potentially a government shutdown. And it's happened in the past before. I think I've shared in previous meetings I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll get things figured out by the 19th of May. Probably will take a special session or two, and hopefully that we avoid a government shutdown. But it is, need to know that by law, they have to pass their next 2-year budget. So that's required by the Constitution. And with that said, I have a special guest here that I would like to introduce. Our next Community Ed Director, Abby Lang, is here. You approved her contract today during the personnel section of that. And I just want to invite Abby to come forward and introduce herself and maybe give a little background of Abby's work in this field. I can tell you it's deep in the family. Her mother was a longtime community ed director, and she grew up in the community ed world since childhood. So welcome, Abby.
Thank you very much. thanks for having me. I appreciate being able to put a name and a face, and I recognize many of the faces, but definitely some new ones as well, which will be the case for a while, but I'm excited to get to know everybody. The last couple of times I was in this room, it was in front of, 10 to 13 people as an interview panel, and that could be a little daunting, but for me, it really showcased the amount of emphasis and the dedication that Delano Public Schools has to community education, and specifically the director position. So thank you for a very rigorous process, and like I said, I'm excited to join the team. A little bit about me. Yes, I often say that I was born in community ed. I always thought it was weird that the director was in my mom and dad's wedding photos, but she was 30 years in Monticello Community Ed, and so I spent evenings in the district office eating dinner when community theater was going, and Saturdays in the pool office while she was teaching swimming lessons, and then, brought my husband along for basketball tournaments and building supervision, and, fast forward a number of years, you never grow up saying, I just want to be like my mom, right? I mean, maybe you do, but I have 4 kids, and I'm in community ed, and I come from a family of 4, and my mom's entire career was community ed, so, that apple kind of fell straight down. But a little bit about me. My husband and I have 4 kids, and our oldest daughter is a sheriff's deputy in Polk County. We have a son who is a pilot in Phoenix, transitioning to Fairbanks, Alaska, so in for a rude awakening. The last time he came home, he never took off his snow pants. I'm like, you haven't been gone that long. And then I have a son at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and a daughter that's a junior who thinks she's an only child, and will be graduating here shortly. So we live just north of Dassel. I've been with Dassel Cato School District for almost 10 years as the Director of Community Services. So I've also spent a number of years, two decades, with adult basic ed. So I have a variety of experience in many facets of community education. And investing in people is my top priority. And so I'm really excited to develop relationships with everybody on the team, throughout the district and in the community. I'm looking forward to getting to know each of you, and in a few short months I will be here. So, any questions for me? I'm used to asking any questions at this table. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, one last component related to Mr. Shane's update is the evaluation that the board does for Mr. Shane's performance. And this year we're doing it on a triannual basis. We evaluated Mr. Shane in the following areas of developing emergency procedures, strategic planning, district operations, communication, and district processes. Superintendent Shane met or exceeded the board's expectations in developing emergency procedures, strategic planning, and district operations. As we look for areas of strength these are areas of strength for Superintendent Shane. We also recognize the value of continuous improvement for everybody in the district. And the board has identified that communication and district processes are areas of potential growth. We're very grateful for Mr. Shane for his leadership and service to the district, and I thank you for all that you do. Including, it sounds like now you're giving the commencement.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It is a very big deal.
Feel very honored to be able to do that.
Well, and I'm sure the students are going to be very honored with the moments and nuggets of wisdom that you provide them as they move on. So, with that, we'll move on to the principal's reports. Ms. Thompson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening on behalf of the intermediate school. I have a short report this week. We've only been back in school for 2 weeks since spring break. Feels like longer, but only 2 weeks. We've had a busy 2 weeks. So I'll just kind of walk you through some things that are going on. First with our site-based leadership team. Last Tuesday and now tomorrow morning as well, we are working on just looking at our school improvement plan, doing some checks of where we are in our planning, looking at some action steps we can take for the remainder of the trimester. Specifically tomorrow, we're going to be talking a little bit about our social emotional learning kind of goal area. We're looking at where we can find some connection between, we have our Tiger Pride character traits, and then we have our habits of a scholar, which are more of our academic skills. And we're just looking for a way to kind of blend those and make them a little bit more meaningful for students. I'm hoping that as we move into our strategic planning and some of those operational practices, that will kind of inform some of that moving forward too. So I'm looking forward to that time in June to really put that strategic plan into action. So that's kind of what our site base has been working on, that, and then also just planning all of the events for the rest of the year. It's just kind of an ongoing list, making sure everybody knows what's happening, when, what schedules impacted, all of those things is a full-time job this time of year. So for professional development, we did have our late start last week. We had most of our teachers doing some curriculum work, so they're working within their departments on wherever they're at in their curriculum adoption cycle. We also have some teachers participating in the letters training, so they did that as well. And some of our teachers participated in vertical teaming, K-12. Some of our specialists have been doing that this year, art department, PE department, music department, and they've found that to be really meaningful, so that's been nice to do. In the area of MTSS and what we're doing with our interventions, we do have our SABRS screener coming up again next month. So the SABRS was new last year. It's a social, academic, and emotional behavior rating scale is what it stands for. Our kids do a self-assessment, and then teachers do an assessment, and then we pull both of those data sets together as our screener. So we did it in the fall. We'll do it again in April. Typically what we find is a lot of the students who maybe show up as flagged are already identified and getting support, but we still like to check in and make sure that we aren't missing anyone or any areas of need that we can address. So that's coming up in April. And then finally, I can just share some events that have been going on. We did do our 4th annual Now Give Back Week event last week. So Andy Brown, Katie Culvener, Rebecca Olmscheid have put this on for the last few years as an opportunity. They raise money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society and the Ronald McDonald House. Kids bring in coins, pop tabs, food, pretty much anything they can donate, they bring in, and they've done a really great job this year. And I wish I had totals, but I don't. Andy wasn't here today to give me the totals, so I can share those with you later. But I can tell you, we had a record-breaking year in our pop tabs, so we're very excited, and it looks like a food shelf outside of Andy's room. So lots of food, lots of good things, lots of generous donations, and it's just been a fun way to kind of get back in the swing of things after spring break. On Thursday, we do have a speaker coming in. His name is Bill Deering. He'll be speaking to our kids on kindness, on resiliency. He'll be doing a couple different presentations. We actually had to reschedule this from January. We had a late start. It was too cold. He couldn't come in. So we're excited to finally be able to have Bill come and talk to our students. And then, of course, the big news coming up in April is that we have our MCAs. All the kids in our building take the MCAs, so it's a really busy time. It's a real group effort to make sure we get everything done and scheduled on time. So it is going to be very busy, but we're ready for it. Comments or questions for the intermediate school?
Would you like to buy any candy bars for band?
Yes, we're asking for Pop Tops, money, food, and buy our candy bars. Yes.
The kids are through my. How can you say no? Every single one.
Our music department is also doing a candy bar fundraiser.
Always on the caramel though. That's like
That's the best one.
Too much almonds.
It is. Shoot.
Yes, all they have left is almond. I know.
For the record too, I have been recruited and I will be reporting shortly after 8 o'clock to help load the truck and be part of the event there. Mr. Brown did leave me a voicemail in the last week and I graciously agreed to get over there and hoist all that
Load the truck,
stuff,
yeah.
load that truck up, so looking forward.
Thank
Thank you so much. All right, next up, Mr. Boyd.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's a pleasure to speak with you on behalf of the high school. I always start my reports with a couple of recognitions, and of course this month is no different. I want to recognize senior Mike Simons, and I'm going to make sure I get this right because it was a big deal. He won the welding contest at the AWS Behind the Mask Challenge, which occurred at St. Paul College. So he's a member of the Wright Tech Center's second-year welding program. So the welding instructor from Wright Tech took a bunch of students to this competition. Apparently it is the state's largest welding competition. There's actually competitions for both students and instructors. The instructor there actually did quite well in one of his contests. But Mike took first place out of 120 college students. He competed with 120 college students. And he took first place in TIG, which is pretty cool. So he actually won another contest, which was a virtual welding contest. So he walked away with 2 brand new welding helmets and a scholarship and those sorts of things. So that's pretty cool. Big deal. It's nice also, usually when I'm recognizing it's state entrance and things like that and success for sport teams, but this was an opportunity for us to recognize Mike, who is obviously a fantastic welder. So congratulations to Mike. The other person I want to recognize is Emily Walters. She's actually sitting back there. She's not expecting this, I'm sure. I wanted to introduce Emily because she is kind of joining our administrative team as an intern. She's a special education teacher here at the high school. She's a special education lead at the high school. She is embarking on her administrative program, and so she's going to be partnering a lot with the administrative team. You'll see her frequently, I'm assuming, in the coming year or so. I'll probably have her come up and deliver some of the reports on occasion when I'm maybe not feeling like it, so we'll have a chance to pepper Emily with questions. So welcome to her. The biggest news that I wanted to share on behalf of the high school was on March 18th at 5:30, we had a very successful 6th grade transition meeting. For the first time ever, usually, right, we all understand the importance of the transition from 6th grade to 7th grade. That's obviously a big deal. Any time a student switches schools is a big deal. We wanted to make that a little bit more effective and be more supportive. And so the idea that we had is to try to kind of pair it with our registration process. And now granted, there's not a lot of choices for 7th graders. They basically get to choose band or choir. So it wasn't like we had to harass them in February to make that switch. So instead, we decided to invite them over for an introductory meeting, kind of tell them a little about the high school, who we are, what do we do, and what opportunities are available. And the big kind of theme for the message is what can they be doing now to be prepared for 7th grade. I was very, very pleased to see that just to ballpark it, there was probably 75% of our 6th graders and their families in attendance at the PAC on that day. And then they got to tour the building and just kind of walk around and feel comfortable. Lots of our community members come to this building on a regular basis, but they come through the perspective of a spectator at a sporting event or whatever. And so, this allowed them a chance to kind of freely walk into some of the other areas of the building, get acclimated. They had a map that just kind of highlighted the 7th grade areas, right? So that was a great time. A lot of good feedback from parents and students. And then, this is just going to be one of several steps that we employ to help make the transition to 7th grade a little bit more effective. We're looking forward to integrating the Tiger Tracks program, which is going to be a transition-oriented program, so that way, at some point in the future, we'll have summer activities that brings kids in, acclimates them to the building, gets them to work with each other some more. Certainly, we'll continue to do our open house things, but for a first go-around, it was a very effective evening. So I look forward to obviously many more of those in the future. That same evening, it was a very busy night that night because we also had our PAC meeting, which is the Parent Athlete Coach meeting for all of our spring activity participants. Obviously, our spring season is up and running. I think lacrosse is actually the only one that has yet to start. That should happen on Monday. But I know you've heard about the PAC meetings before. Ms. Chatterton, our new AD, has done a wonderful job of just getting kind of everybody on the same page, giving them consistent information, and allowing all of the parents and the participants to see, what does it mean to be a student activity participant, student coming first, and then how to communicate and those sorts of things. As Katie mentioned, it is almost April, which means MCA testing is coming. Mr. Boffman has done a wonderful job navigating the scheduling and how all that works in our building. I know our staff are working on incentivizing performance on the MCA. Not necessarily performance, I should say, but effort, of course, right? One of the things that we like to do as a district is take stock of our performance and our levels of achievement. And our ability to do that is only as good as the validity of the data. So it's important for us, for our kids, to take those tests as seriously as possible. Obviously, it makes us look good. It attracts other students and community residents and those sorts of things. Plus, we want a good, accurate picture of how our students are performing so that we can make appropriate changes to the curriculum and instruction and things like that. I think I'll leave it at that, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has relative to the high school.
Just to piggyback on the PAC, the players parents, athletes, and coaches. I was over at kindergarten roundup, so I couldn't make the sixth grade transition meeting, but I was able to make that. And I've done every season, the fall, the winter, and the spring. And I'm gonna tell you, that PAC is full. Every single season, just about full. When I left the transition for another event, there were people standing in the back of the PAC. So I think they've been very effective, good feedback. Megan's done a really good job in organizing that. We haven't had those types of orientation meetings for a while. And just to see all the parents and the coaches and the athletes there together was a really special thing to see, so appreciate it.
No, it's definitely an enhancement, definitely for everybody to hear the same information, so thank you.
You have a question?
I was gonna ask, you talked about, no, you're good, the MCT testing. Out of curiosity, what are some of the ways you're going to be rewarding students for efforts?
So I can speak specifically about the FAST testing, and then our teachers are going to employ similar strategies to the extent possible. The MCA testing does add a unique complication in that, well, specifically for our science MCAs this year, because it's a brand new science test, we won't even get those results until like the fall. So just as an example, for MCA testing, students that get a meets or exceeds are basically, in some instances, they'll be guaranteed a certain percentage on the final exam. So it's not going to be used to like replace a final grade in a course, but it can be used to supplement a final exam score. For those situations, like I explained, the science test, where we get the scores much later, we still have the ability to go back and update in the grade book and then see if the final score has changed. So it's obviously a delayed implementation, but it still exists and we can still go back in the event that we need to. What we're doing for FAST, because that's, I think, a little bit more reflective of what the intent is, those are based on scale scores. And what we're doing is not looking at a specific achievement level, but we're looking for any sort of growth. So if a student's score improves from fall to spring, then they're getting bonus points again on their final exam or whatever. So that's how that's layering in. The nice thing about the FAST test is the scores are immediately available, and it's basically equally accessible to all. So we're incentivizing both the FAST and the MCA. And again, the main reason for that is that we want accurate representations of our students' abilities and skills so that we can make appropriate adjustments to curriculum and instruction.
Thank you.
This was started last year, I think at least last year, right? I think.
Yeah, last year we kind of piloted it, and we noticed the number of opt-outs actually dropped. What we've discovered over sort of years, well, we did the analysis last year, but we were in looking at several years prior, we noticed that, our opt-outs were increasing. And when we looked at student scores, oftentimes the MCAs will show you the prior year score. So when I get the score reports, it'll show the current score and then the prior year score. More often than not, the students that opted out met or exceeded the expectations on the prior year score. So, it wasn't, obviously I think our scores as reported by the state, reflective of our district, were underrepresenting our students' abilities. So we're basically, trying to incentivize, take these seriously, try your best. The resulting score isn't the most important, we just want students to do their best.
Any other question? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. On behalf of the elementary, I have a brief report for you today. Starting with site-based, we are also working on our mid-year review. At first glance, we are kind of looking like we are going to be meeting most of the goals that we had put in place. So the site-based reps are now gathering some feedback from their teams and their grade levels, and then next week we'll kind of look at that a little bit more closely. And then we also have now implemented our second round of our SABRE screening. And so at the elementary school, we do it twice a year. We do that in November, and then we do it again in February. So we have another few months to try to hone in on any of those kids that we might need to give another additional boost to as far as some intervention planning. But overall, it was really exciting to see that our, as a whole building, our low-risk population increased. So that's about 689 students in that low-risk category. And then our some-risk category decreased, so we have about 71 students there, and our high-risk has about 12 students as a whole. So I think those are really good numbers and very telling of the work that our SST group is doing, and then our interventionists and our Tier 1 in our classroom instruction. So I feel like we have good things happening at the elementary school to help respond to what students are needing. And Diane Pullman, she helps facilitate some of this and reviews a lot of the data. She's really savvy at kind of digging into those some risk kids and kind of finding out like, okay, have they been brought to SST? Do they need to come? What exactly was it that it was, you know, kind of flagging them in that some risk? So then we kind of get those kids that are maybe closer to that high risk, but they're in that some risk to kind of make sure that they're getting what they need to. So she's been great in this process and fun to work with there. Additionally, we are at a site-based level, we're looking at our handbook and taking feedback from teams of what we might want to revise and adjust. So I'll be able to share that in the coming months here. And then we're just starting to look at our August retreat day, so planning that ahead as well. Our PD plans, we're kind of, obviously most of our building is doing letters, and then as Ms. Thompson mentioned, some vertical teams with our specialists, and then data review and curriculum planning for some of our other staff not in letters. But then we're also starting to look at our professional development plans for next year already. And so letters again is going to be part of that, which is going to be great. It'll be year 2, so we're gonna, in the final year of that, which will be really nice when we're all consistently trained at our building. And then Katie Thompson and Sarah Bursey are leading a small group of us with our teacher development and evaluation plan. So they are doing a really nice job working through that process to kind of align and revamp some of our rubrics. So that work is happening, and then that will be shared out to all staff in the fall, next fall during workshop week. And then we have our EduClimber work that we're working on, and then we have decided as an academic leadership team to have all of our staff trained in the FAST assessments. So that will ensure some of that fidelity when we're administering and giving students those assessments, that all of our teachers, because we've had a lot of turnover, and even some of our staff that have been there for 10 to 12 years, they have never been totally trained on that. So that will be good, and then that will be on a 2-year cycle to keep us all current. Recently, we've had some kindergarten roundup, which was very well attended. We have an updated number of 150 that are registered, so that is sitting really well, I would say, similar to last year around this time. And then we had our Tiger Fun Fair on Saturday, which was a huge success, wildly attended, and lots of fun had by all there. So a huge thank you to our PI group. Volunteers, it does not run without volunteers, and we had a lot of them. So that was really fun to see. We've got our preparations for MCAs are underway, and our art fair is April 24th, and our Tiger Dash is May 3rd. And last, I would just like to thank those of you that have been able to attend some of our events recently, whether it's as a parent or in your role professionally, but it has been noticed and appreciated, and we're really glad to have you there. Any questions or comments?
More of a comment, but I did attend that kindergarten roundup, and you and the entire school did a great job welcoming in the parents.
Thank you.
I think that there was an overwhelming positive review amongst the parents, and just that process of separation of the kids too was a really cool incorporation of starting that trusting cycle. So
Yes.
hats off.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Next, Mary Reeder, business manager.
A few things to report. Matt and I will be meeting with the Finance Committee next week to go over the budget projection model results. We have a couple things going on with food service. We had to go out for our prime vendors again this year. We do it every 3 years. Quotes will be due on April 21st at 1 p.m. We did get it in the paper last week, and it'll be again this week as well. We currently use Upper Lakes as our prime food service vendor. That's where we get them in, and that just means it's who we use to get the majority of our food. We'll also be going out for bread and milk bids again this year. We usually go out in April and have it approved at the May board meeting. And if we have to increase prices for adults or second meals or à la carte, that'll be also approved by the board at the May meeting. We didn't really have to change anything last year price-wise, so I don't know that we would again this year, but Mel and I will be going over that here in the next month or so. Any questions? Thank you.
Next. Julia.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight on behalf of community education. Tonight I'd like to discuss our aquatics and fitness program areas. As I mentioned previously, one of our primary goals of community ed is to get the community members into our facilities so they can see what the district has to offer, see the programs that we have taking place in our facilities. And in regards to our aquatics program, our main and primary facility is our pool. Throughout the summer and up to this point in the school year, our pool's been in use for over 1,300 hours, so the pool has seen some good use. And what does that use look like? So who's using our pool? We have our TAC members, community members, our district staff are also using those facilities outside of our school hours. We have lap swimmers, we have water aerobics programming, we have our Velocity Swim Club, we have our summer diving clinics, our Special Olympics Swim Club, our Delano High School girls and boys swim programs, and then also something that has been brought back that had fallen off a little bit is our open swim sessions. So we had thanks to Natalie Bjorklund, who was able to put this together, working with our lifeguards to staff the pool for those sessions. She was able to start this. Our first session was March 16th. Our next one will be coming up here on March 30th, and we're also going to have more days to come here in April. So that's exciting to see that program coming back. And then in regards to our fitness programming for adults, along with staffing and maintaining our weight and circuit room for our Tiger Activity Center members, we currently offer water aerobics for 2 days a week. We have personal training sessions. We now have 2 personal trainers on staff that are able to work with that many more community members. And then for yoga, we currently have 1 instructor able to offer programming 2 days a week. In the summer, we're going to add another instructor, so we're going to be able to offer up to 4 days a week to meet the different needs at different times of day for our community members. And then, although we have a lot of good programming in our aquatics and our fitness program, these are 2 areas within community ed that we do need to see some improvement. In regards, at the end of our last summer, we had a long-term fitness instructor step away from teaching lessons due to personal reasons. But we are currently in communication with a community member that's interested in offering programming to kind of try to fill that void, and so we're working on some final details with them to see what they're going to be able to offer, and so excited for that option to come up here. And another area of improvement is, as we've always heard, swimming lessons. We are in the process, we're working hard on reestablishing our swimming lesson programs. We understand the importance in our community of what swimming lessons means to the families, and the importance to have our students go through those classes. So right now we're in the process of recruiting our WSI, recruiting more lifeguards. We're also in the process of recruiting a pool manager to oversee those lessons to make sure that programming is at the highest level it can be. And as soon as we have the staff in place, we're going to start offering swimming lessons, no matter what that looks like. But as soon as we have appropriate staff in place, we are planning to offer swimming lessons again. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Student board representatives.
Starting off in the high school, March 13th was our Mental Health Awareness Day. We had a guest speaker who spoke to all students, grades 7 through 12 at the high school, about dreams and goals in life. It was a very cool presentation I got to attend. The importance of taking care of your mental health in order to accomplish goals in life was one of the main topics that he covered. And then the Indeco program organized booths for students in the digital commons to walk through all day. There was coloring pages, there was fidgets, there were stickers, encouraging notes, and just information about mental health awareness as well.
Also in the high school last week, I didn't even know this was happening, but during a WIN session, the seniors had the opportunity to meet with 7th grade students and kind of like partner or pair up. And we had a list of questions like about academics, about extracurriculars, about friends, about just like high school experience in general. And honestly, the kids really got into it. Like the class I was in, like I was looking around and a both the seniors and the 7th graders were like really engaged in conversation. So that was just super cool to see. Also, this upcoming Thursday, we have our last student listening session with the seniors. So we're kind of gonna use this as like an outro interview of just overall what's worked well with their high school experience, what hasn't worked well, and then also just some like senior year things, like how did they feel they were prepared for like college application processes and stuff like that, and how we can make those things better.
At the intermediate school, Sophia and I had the pleasure of attending the intermediate school student council meeting. We helped with their Mint and Encouraging Note project for the MCAs. We taped little lifesaver mints onto encouraging notes, which is such a fun project. During that time, we also had a good time discussing with the student council about their events that they had, about the upcoming ones. The 6th graders have a special end of the year reward. I'm not sure if it's out yet, so I didn't know if I wanted to reveal it to the board. But this. Okay. The event apparently was suggested by a 6th grader, which is really cool. He said he had been talking about this event since 4th grade. So very cool that the students got to kind of pick their own event. At the elementary school, the MCA prep is also taking place. Sophie and I have mentioned in the past our spreadsheet that we're working with the NHS members and the teachers. It still has some flaws and we're still trying to work out some kinks, but we're hoping by the end of this year and then going on to next year, it'll be a little bit more smooth and just more easily accessed by NHS members and teachers as well.
Any questions?
Great report, thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to our board reports. First up is the SAFE February meeting, which Rachel Deppa attended.
So it happened like a month ago, so that you get another report really soon because the next one's coming. I forgot to tell Bobby to put it on the agenda, so it's my fault. Willie Jett spoke quickly and then had to go, so just kind of gave us a summary of what's going on with the Department of Ed. And then Adosh, and I'm not even going to say Adosh's last name, and Kathy Erickson from MD came up. They talked about a really small budget shortfall of about $5.1 billion. And then talked about the governor's priorities. The big ones are going to be the hold harmless provision, at least the big ones that are going to affect us, working out for compensatory aid, and then the discussion about eliminating QComp, which is going to affect our teachers. Notes and minutes are attached. We figured out how to do that.
Thanks, Rachel. Next up, Sarah Baker and Masiko.
Yeah, I just want to thank Angie again for being such a professional and expert face of Masiko. I think just how Angie talked about the work that Masiko does is so student-centered, and that's obvious when you talk about the work that you do. So thank you for that. Last month, we worked through some information again about legislative advocacy. The director, Masiko, had been at the Minnesota State Legislature meeting with some representatives, talking and just advocating for special education issues. And we got some updates on the federal level too. Again, I do feel that we are well served both through Matt and Mary and Masiko in terms of our leaders being very well aware of what's happening and keeping us abreast of those potential changes or just what might be on the path ahead. We are still working through some like physical safety issues at the Masiko building with these delayed egress doors. They're working through funding on those. Again, that's a good example of student need sort of driving decision-making and things that are needed even on a physical level. Masiko, as Matt mentioned, is turning 50 this year, so they are planning some celebrations at the end of this school year. And we will have our meeting again tomorrow, but notes and the proposed unofficial meeting minutes are attached.
Thank you, Sarah. Right Tech Center, Jim.
So the Red Tech Center meeting was during our spring break, so I was not there, but I can report that
we did choose or offer a position to a new director. We haven't approved it yet, so I really shouldn't say, I guess, who it is, but I believe that it's going well, and it was our first choice. But I'm also on the facilities committee there, and these LTFM dollars are going to be well spent on roofing and flooring and things that are just needed throughout the plans of that building. And the school calendar was also approved at the last meeting, but our next meeting is April 1st, and I'll be sure to give Bobby both minutes so you can see them.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Moving on to old business. The first item on old business is to approve the second read to reinstate the 2020 version of policy 522, Title IX, non-discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process due to a federal court order. This was discussed last month, and it's also in conjunction with the next item that we're going to rescind the old or the current version. So with that, is there anyone here for public comment related to this policy? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the second read to reinstate policy 522. Rachel is a first.
Jess a second.
Jess is a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to approve. The second policy we have under old business is to approve to rescind the 2024 version of policy 522, Title IX, non-discrimination policies. Basically, these two policies, right, are flip-flopping. We're going back to the version 2020 as though this 2024 policy never existed. Is there anyone here for public comment for this policy? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move. Right.
Brian moves second.
Second.
Second by Baker. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries to rescind the 2024 version of the policy. Moving on to new business. The first item of new business is our strategic roadmap. This is a strategic roadmap that is the culmination of, I don't know, probably a year of effort related to work that has happened within the community feedback, within all of practically everyone sitting in this room have put in many, many hours to get to this point of the strategic roadmap for the district. And I believe after the many hours that not only the board, but all of you have spent on it, it's something that we can be proud of that will help us drive the future of the district. With that, I will accept a motion to approve the strategic plan roadmap for the district.
So moved.
Jim was the first.
I'll be second.
Second is a Jess. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a strategic roadmap. Very exciting, and thank you to all of you who've been involved in this process. I know it has been, I don't know if it's a labor of love or not, but it's definitely a helpful, it's a labor of direction of how to help us all. All right, the next item under the new business is the approving extended field trips for Eagle Bluff, Madrid, Spain, the Delano dance team going to Iowa, the football camp going to Duluth, and the girls volleyball going to Marshall. There are, the forms of each of these field trips is attached below. We discussed these in work session last month.
I'll move. Ryan.
Ryan moves, thank you Ryan, a second. Depa a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next item is to approve the first and only read of policy 101, legal status of district, legal status of Delano ISD School District. Policy 103, complaints, students, employee, parents, and other persons. Policy 402, disability non-discrimination policy due to review schedule. And again, I think as Matt mentioned, these are first and only reads. They're policies we need to review on a regular annual basis. So there have been no changes made to them. They're just been reviewed by the board. Is there anyone here for public comment related to these policies? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion.
Jess is a first motion.
Second.
Second by Baker. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to approve these 3 policies. Next policy is item 13D, to approve the first read of policy 410, family and medical leave. Is there anyone here for public comment related to this policy? It was discussed in work session. All right, I'll entertain a motion for approve this policy.
So,
Jim was the first, a second?
Right.
Ryan the second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to approve the first and only read of policy 410. Next policy is the approve the first read of policy 614, school district testing plan and procedure. During work session, we discussed actually leaving this policy as is. There was a recommendation that came forth from MSBA related some language in there, and we discussed leaving the language in there related to retaliation being absolutely not tolerated, even within this policy specifically, in addition to the fact that retaliation is not prohibited generally within other policies. So is there anyone here for public comment for that? The motion would then be that we would not make the suggested change.
Correct. You would leave the proposed language for removal in, and it is completely at the board's discretion in this matter.
Make the motion that we leave the proposed language in.
Thank you, Rachel.
I second Jim.
Second, Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries to leave the language in the policy rather than delete it as attached. The next item is 13F, to approve the first read to rescind policy 617, school district insurance of preparatory and high school standards. This we also discussed at work session as an outdated process policy that really is no longer relevant. Is there anyone here for public comment related to this policy? Entertain a motion to rescind policy 617. Baker first, Jim second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to rescind policy 617. Next item, 13G, is to approve the first read of policy 701, establishment and adoption of a school district budget. Is there anyone here for public comment related to this policy?
I just want somebody to stand up now. For fun.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Moved, Ryan.
Second.
Second, Jess. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries to approve policy 701. Lastly, public comment. School patrons are given the opportunity to address the school board regarding items that are not on the agenda. All patrons will be asked to state their name for the record. While the school board appreciates feedback from the public in this forum, board members will not comment on or discuss topics brought up by speakers at this time. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? All right. With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Depa.
Deppa? Second Baker. Second Baker. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you all for your attendance. What?